John Geesman on behalf of the Alliance for Nuclear Responsibility. I wanted to respond to Dr. Lamb. Let me say, first of all, that I do agree with the action that you took earlier in the meeting, closing the item out on the seismic studies, because my concerns, as expressed at your June meeting, have been mooted. But Dr. Lamb, I think you've been inaccurately informed. There is indeed an ASLB proceeding pending, and it plays a very large role in these state-funded seismic studies. It is the ASLB proceeding convened to consider the extension of Diablo Canyon's 2 operating licenses. That proceeding was suspended in, I believe, June of 2011 to enable PG&E to complete these state-funded studies. And when I say state-funded studies, it's the AB 1632 Seismic Studies Program, which the PUC authorized $64.25 million of ratepayer funds to pay for. The report submitted in August, which PG&E labeled as final, was indeed directed to the Atomic Safety and Licensing Board. And every month since June of 2011, PG&E has been updating the Atomic Safety and Licensing Board on the progress of those studies and when they would be anticipated to be received. The concern I expressed in June related to a subsidiary issue that had first been raised in, I believe, November of 2012 in a letter from NRC staff person Joseph Sabrowski to PG&E. And that was the letter which enabled PG&E to withdraw its license amendment request to change the design basis for the plant. In that letter, Mr. Sabrowski said, and he adopted, as the NRC staff has, PG&E's characterization that earthquakes or ground motions associated with the maximum credible earthquake on the shoreline fault were indeed bounded by the ground motion response spectra established in the Hosgri evaluation some number of years previously. Mr. Sabrowski said in his letter, if in fact PG&E discovers anything more about the shoreline fault in terms of a greater capability, we expect to be informed by PG&E on an interim basis. In my naivete, I associated a certain time urgency with that request from Mr. Sabrowski. So I brought to your attention in June of last year the fact that the Alliance for Nuclear Responsibility had discovered emails between Mr. Halpin and several of his lieutenants in the spring of 2013, indicating that they now accepted the notion, contrary to the NRC's November report on the shoreline fault, that the shoreline fault was in fact longer than previously thought and linked to other faults, and in fact a joint rupture scenario with the Hosgri fault was something that they were assuming was possible. So I came to you in June and said, you know, the NRC wanted to know about this. If PG&E came to this conclusion, PG&E has been sitting on this conclusion for 14 or 15 months. I think that may create a problem. Well, when Mr. Halpin submitted the AB 1632 studies to the Atomic Safety and Licensing Board in August of last year, he did in fact address that issue and said, yeah, we've changed our assessment of the shoreline fault, but it is still bounded by the ground motion response spectrum associated with the Hosgri evaluation. Now, as you well know, that is a very controversial question. Dr. Blakesley has recently called into question just exactly how these ground motion prediction equations are arrived at. But I'm not going to address that tonight. I want to repeat, I agree with the action that you earlier took in closing out the item, because the item is now moot by virtue of Mr. Halpin's letter. But I'm not in any way satisfied with the way in which either PG&E or the NRC have handled the matter.
Oh, Mr. Geesman, I heard you loud and clear. And as a matter of fact, thank you for clarifying by what you just said. My acceptance of what the facilities response to the team's inquiry was, I read, a letter from PG&E to the NRC's chairman saying that they had put the relicensing effort into abeyance. That letter came like a couple of years ago? 2011. Right. So with that letter informing me any relicensing effort was in abeyance as requested by PG&E, and then the facilities personnel is saying, well, there's no pending Atomic Safety Licensing Board action on that because, as the licensing request, the whole proceeding be put in abeyance. But what you have said certainly clarified the issue. So I would assume, based on what you just informed me, the sitting licensing board is still in the process of accepting modification without taking any action on the pending issue. And thank you for that information. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. Additional public comment? Thank you.